Yo, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another One Piece trading card game video. In today's video, I'm going to share with you guys 5 things that I have learned from my early One Piece trading card game testing. These are things I think are going to be very helpful to you guys, whether you're brand new to card games or even coming to this game from a different game like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Dragon Ball, whatever the case may be. So we'll get into it. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want more One Piece content, definitely let me know down in the comments. I've really been enjoying the game. It's got a lot of similarities to Dragon Ball that I really appreciate. Even some things there that are similar to Digimon that I feel like they kind of improved upon. I'm still going to be primarily a Dragon Ball channel, but again, I've been enjoying the game a lot. I don't see any reason to not cover it as long as I enjoy the game. That was kind of my thing with Digimon. I didn't really enjoy it, so I couldn't really bring myself to make content for it. But so far, One Piece, I am liking it. So let me know if you want more content down in the comments. Anyways, let's get into this. So like I said, I've been doing a lot of early testing for One Piece. Haven't given it 100% of my time because I do have Dragon Ball events coming up, but we have played a fair amount of games. Mostly we've been playing the Luffy starter deck versus the Kaido starter deck in our own personal builds. So one of the main things I've certainly noticed is that deck construction and consistency is very different in One Piece, at least compared to Digimon and Dragon Ball. So the thing with One Piece is it's a 50 card deck with 4 of playsets, just like Dragon Ball, right? But there's a lot less draw power built into the game. Like, even in the early days of Dragon Ball Super, there was less draw power than there is now, but you still had leaders that drew cards once they were awakened. You still had your awakened drawing 2 when you activated it. One Piece so far doesn't really have anything like that, and not a lot of the main deck cards seem to draw you cards either. So while you're playing with a 50 card deck with a bunch of 4-ofs, you're not necessarily guaranteed to see any one of your 4-ofs ultra consistently every game. Like, I've personally been playing a lot of Kaido, and some of the really good cards in that deck are King, Queen, and Onigashima, and there are some games I play where I don't see a single copy of any of those cards. Like, I'll see one of those cards usually throughout a game, right? Like, that's gonna happen, but I'm not necessarily guaranteed to see one of each of those cards every game. There have been many games where I've played without Onigashima, and it's noticeably tougher to play the deck that way, right? Because if you guys don't know how the Kaido deck necessarily works, you basically have to send a lot of your Dons in your energy area back into the Don deck to resolve multiple effects. And the purpose of Onigashima is to kind of accelerate your Dons, but since you're sacrificing Dons to do various effects, you're kind of just keeping your Dons at status quo with Onigashima, which is kind of the strength of the card. And when you don't happen to draw into it, especially early, it is a bit tougher to play the game because now you're sacrificing your Dons and not keeping them at the status quo. So my main point with that is you're gonna have to kind of get used to playing games that are a bit less consistent, especially if you come from Dragon Ball. Digimon, I know, has this problem as well, because if you don't happen to open like a rookie, at least in previous sets, you could be in a bit of trouble. But now there's all these hybrid cards that evolve over tamers and rookies. That's a bit less of a problem. So that whole point just leads me to say that, of course, One Piece can definitely develop more draw power over time, maybe even search power if they decide to go that route. Maybe they'll make leaders that draw cards more consistently. That could be a pretty cool thing that I would like, because I really enjoy when games are ultra consistent. My thing about Dragon Ball is you're going to see the majority of your deck every game, so it really comes down to player skill and way less luck, because both players have their entire library of cards at their disposal. One Piece so far seems like you're going to have to kind of get used to playing without some of your best cards in some games, which can definitely be a little tough, but that's one thing I've learned so far. Next up, I want to talk about Brachio Bomber as a kind of example where in the Kaido deck, there's Brachio Bomber, right? Which KOs anything up to 6 costs and has a great trigger effect where you can accelerate a Don if it happens to be hit out of your life. There's a few event cards in the Kaido deck in particular that are pretty good, and they have actually really good trigger effects. But compare this to a card like Queen, which is just a simple battle card. Yes, it only KOs 4 or less, so it's not quite as effective removal as Brachio Bomber, but it's an actual character card that you can play to the board, right? So how do we work out this balance of playing battle cards that actually stick to the board, allow you to apply board pressure, versus event cards that, in a case like Brachio Bomber, are pretty costly? A 6 energy event card that doesn't give you board presence is definitely going to be a little bit tough to justify for some veteran card game players. The trigger effect's really good though, and we have trigger effects in this game unlike Dragon Ball and much like Digimon. So a card like this, how do we justify playing a certain number of copies of it? Well, this kind of goes back to my previous statement about deck construction, where I've noticed in the Kaido deck, a lot of your things do cost you a lot of energy or a lot of Don, but again, if you hit Onigashima early, that's kind of not as big of a problem. And I want to be able to deal my opponent's board, especially in the Luffy matchup where they're very aggressive. I've noticed that I really do want to have access to cards that are going to allow me to clear my opponent's board. So as of right now, I'm trying out 4 Brachio Bomber and 4 of the other event card that both have trigger effects, and it's been working pretty okay for me. A lot of the character cards that come in the structure deck don't necessarily seem great, and we're going to talk more about that in just a little bit. But yeah, because there are some games that I'm not really going to see King, I'm kind of treating Brachio Bomber as my 5th through 8th copies of King. Again, even though it doesn't give me board presence, it's kind of a little bit lackluster, but there's still those high odds that they'll end up in your life where you can get the trigger effects, which is kind of the methodology I'm approaching with right now. I think as more time goes on, though, we're going to get better character cards, and I can definitely see a realm where events get heavily phased out in favor of characters, as long as there are characters that fill similar roles. Like if we get another card similar to King, maybe it'll be like, I don't know, an 8-cost character that KOs a 7 or less, or even a smaller character that KOs smaller opponents' characters, right? That could be something where you say, okay, these cards actually have counter power, so I'm going to take Brachio Bomber out of my deck because it doesn't give me board presence, it doesn't counter for anything. But anyways, let's move on to the next point. Alright, so another thing I've learned that I actually adopted from Dragon Ball, but it's a bit of a different methodology in One Piece. So defend the small attacks so you can afford to take the big ones. This is something that I learned in Dragon Ball, and if you guys play Dragon Ball, you'll know what I talk about when I say Dark Broly. You combo out of the small stuff like the Leader Swing and some other small 15k attacks so you can afford to take the big 30k attacks, right? I've adopted a similar philosophy in One Piece where, you know, oftentimes your leaders are going to hit each other for damage, right? Because they're both 5k leaders for the most part. Then you have your opponent's cards that are, you know, maybe sometimes 4Ks that they'll attach Dons to. Maybe they have 5Ks that match your leader in power, or they have like 6Ks, 7Ks when they start getting into their boss monsters. The thing about One Piece compared to Dragon Ball is, in Dragon Ball, you get big advantages for taking early damage, but, you know, as the game goes on and you become lower in life, you want to avoid taking damage so you don't lose the game, right? But also in Dragon Ball, taking all that life allows you to get to your awaken point. One Piece does not have an awaken mechanic, and you start at less life. You start at 5 life, although you technically have a 6 life because they have to hit you one time directly, right? But all in all, you're still starting with less life. So one thing that I've noticed is I end up defending a lot of the smaller attacks, even if I'm at like 4 life, not usually the 5th life, but if I'm at 4 life, 3 life, I'll use some counters in my hand to try and stop those small attacks where it only costs me 1 card to do, so that if my opponent attacks my life with a 7k or something, I don't have to spend 3 cards countering or 2 cards countering to get out of that. So I think a good general rule of thumb is defend the small attacks so you can afford to take the big ones. Next up, I want to talk about ulti, because on first read, before I really knew the rules of the game, ulti read very, very strong. So it's a counter for 2k, which countering in One Piece for a 2k seems to be a very high counter number, whereas most other cards counter for 1k. But this card says when it's played, you may play up to 1 cost 4 or lower page 1 from your hand. And so far, the page 1 that we've seen, I believe it's just a 4 or 5k vanilla that, you know, you can play for free with ulti's effect, right? But the thing about One Piece is there's summoning sickness, very much unlike Dragon Ball. So if you come from Dragon Ball or even Yu-Gi-Oh, where there's no such thing as summoning sickness, and you see a card that says play another card, you might intuitively think like, wow, this card seems very powerful. I just get free board presence for my turn 2 play, essentially. But because of the summoning sickness and because of the built-in removal that the game already seems to have, that's not really such a great play. Like, in my current Kaido build, I'm just playing for ulti, pretty much only because it counters for 2. I don't actually really play this character to the field, because especially if you're in a Kaido mirror, they can remove one of, if not both, your battle cards fairly easily if they see the right cards. So I say that all to say that it seems like because of the summoning sickness mechanic, board swarming is not going to be necessarily as effective. Like, I can see a scenario where this is good, right? Like, your opponent's only got 1 life left, they're running low on resources, and maybe they only have like 2 cards in hand. This has definitely happened when I'm up against the Luffy deck, where I can play ulti, play page 1 for my hand, and now next turn I almost have guaranteed game, assuming they don't have enough counter power in their hand, right? That's definitely a scenario where this happens, but most early game situations, ulti is going to be better as a counter rather than actually playing her to establish 2 creatures on the board, if that makes sense. And the final thing I want to talk about that I've learned, guys, that me and my teammates have kind of come to the agreement on, it is very, very difficult to play character cards that don't have counter power. These cards just end up sitting dead in your hand when you're either trying to defend your currently established board from attacks or your life. And it's very hard to justify playing those cards. This Zoro is a really solid card on the face of it, right? Like, It's a 3 cost, so you can play as early as turn 2, going first or second. As long as you attach a Dawn to it, it gains 1,000 power, so it's going to be a 7k because of that. The card seems really solid, but the fact that it doesn't have counter power, especially as the game goes on and your opponent ramps up more Dawns, now they have more Dawns to attach to their leader, attach to their character cards, and attack you for bigger numbers. Any copies of Zoro just sitting in your hand is going to feel really bad. So the thing I've noticed with these cards that don't have counter power, I'm not really playing a full 4 copies of them. I'm very rarely even playing 3 copies of them. I would really only play 2 for right now, considering the fact that, you know, between these and event cards, how many cards can you realistically justify playing in your deck that don't give you counter power, right? Like, that's something you heavily have to consider. The Kaido deck makes that a little bit easier because, you know, King, you pretty much want to play 4 because you always want to be removing your opponent's board. And the boss monster Kaidos that don't have counter power, it's okay to only play 2 copies of them because they're your boss monsters. They require, you know, 8, 9, 10 Dawn, depending on which one you're playing. It's okay to not have to counter with those because you're playing so few anyway, because it's such a late game play. But Zoro being a turn 2 play, you would think, okay, I want to play 4 copies of this because I want to get this guy down as early as possible. But the more you include in your deck, the less counter power you're going to have in your hand at a given time. So that's another thing that we've learned as we've been going through our early testing in One Piece. But of course, guys, the game is super new. Things are going to be constantly evolving. Better and better strategies are going to be discovered for One Piece. These are just the initial things that I've discovered. I mean, hey, maybe in a couple weeks, maybe in a couple months with more card reveals, some of these things won't hold true. Again, this is mostly testing between the Kaido deck and the Luffy deck, but just things I've learned, things I think you can take into your early One Piece testing. If you guys haven't played the game yet, go check it out. There is an official rule manual in English on the One Piece trading card game website, and the game is now playable on untapped.in and Tabletop Simulator. So go enjoy the game, guys. Have fun with it, and let me know in the comments below what you think about this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Yo, Dragon Ballers, quick break in the video to give a huge shout out to PPG, who is going above and beyond to make our organized play season the best that it can possibly be. I'm here on the PPG event management website. I'm going to link this down in the description, so all you have to do to sign up for any of these events is go down to that link. We have an event in Denver, which is for the Pro Play Tour organized season. Not only are you playing for an invite to the Pro Play Invitational, but you're also playing for $2,000 guaranteed. And if you want to, guys, there is also a Team War event in that same weekend, and Team War is one of the best formats to play. If you haven't played a tournament with your friends, you absolutely have to do it. And then finally, an event that I know for sure that I'll be attending is the Too Many Games convention in Philadelphia. This is actually a regional for the regular Dragon Ball Super organized play season. So again, guys, super huge shout out to PPG. Secondly, this website is so awesomely laid out. All you have to do is go to this website. All these different tabs here will take you to the events you want to sign up for. I hope to see you guys there. Let's get back into the video.